All right, welcome back to Brainflow TV / Hot Topics TV. You already know if the topic is hot, we're on it. Listen, Diddy, right? When Diddy seems like he is losing, it seems like a lot of people are rejoicing. When he seems like he's winning, it seems like a lot of people go quiet. Like they want to act like the L's are what counts and the W's need to be hidden. Well, Diddy just took a big W. Huge W. Let's get into the details. So the headline says that Diddy wins dismissal of Lil Rod's RICO breach of contract claims as civil lawsuit moves forward. Sean Diddy Combs, Puff Daddy, Brother Love, Puffy, however you might want to call him. He won a portion of his uphill legal battles on Monday when a federal judge dismissed the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Act, dismissed the RICO portion, and 4 other causes of action brought in the legal filing from Rodney Little Rod Jones, the producer whose accusations preceded a flood of legal complaints against the rap mogul and his company. On Monday, Judge J. Paul Oitken of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York weighed in on Diddy's defense team's motion to dismiss Jones versus Combs in a 31-page opinion, granting the motion in part by denying other portions that are related to sexual assault and trafficking. Take that. Take that. I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we... Listen, before I even go any further, right? I said, I got a lot of haters for this, but I don't care because everybody has an opinion and opinions are like assholes, right? I said, do not count Sean P. Diddy Combs out. This man money is long. His influence reaches far. His connections run super deep. You know, it's funny when people were allowed to just make stuff up about him and accuse him, and the media kept putting it out there like, oh, there's another lawsuit against Sean P. Diddy Combs for this and for that and all these salacious things, only to have one of the attorneys who carried most of those cases turn out to be a sham and has actually withdrawn himself from all those cases. So the slimmed down civil case will still move forward, but the racketeering accusation struck from the case won't be there anymore, along with the breach of contract claim and 3 causes of action related to infliction of emotional distress, all gone. Judge Oitken also dismissed a claim in that lawsuit that's related to the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. So all this stuff y'all were talking about, Diddy, racketeering, trafficking, listen, he is quietly winning behind the scenes. Now, I'm not saying that he'll be out of jail or out of prison, out of jail tomorrow and out of harm's way. You know, a civil case is different from a criminal case. So they will still be proceeding with the civil cases, which in most part, civil cases don't have the consequences of prison. They do have the consequences of you having to pay out a lot of money, but they don't have the consequences of prison. Criminal cases, on the other hand, could end with lengthy prison time. So with the judge slimming this down, blocking and removing the Trafficking Victims Protection, under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the part that relates to that, the part where Rob was suing for infliction of emotional distress, the part that related to sexual assault and trafficking, Diddy is doing really good. Now, in the dismissal of the RICO elements of the lawsuit, the judge decided that Jones's case failed to prove any injury to his business or his property caused by a RICO enterprise overseen by Sean P. Diddy Combs. And therefore, he can't sue under the claim that his complaints related to any alleged illicit enterprise. The judge said that Jones' non-payment claim also lacked a causal connection with any purported racketeering activity. You got to remember, man, he threw Diddy way up under the bus. We're talking about way up under the bus. Little Rod. Little Rod was somebody who was around Diddy for a while. He was somebody who Diddy trusted, brought into his inner circle. Now you got to understand, right? Sean P. Diddy Combs, billionaire, wealthy, highly connected. People like him, they have to be careful who they bring into their circle because you don't know who has an ulterior motive. And not only that, once people like Diddy brings you into their circle, they are by extension giving you access to other high-profile people. So they got to be super careful. You could get into somebody's circle, like, say, for instance, you get into Denzel Washington's circle. And now Denzel Washington invites you to a red carpet event. And because you came with Denzel Washington, now you are there rubbing elbows with Will Smith. Now you go away thinking, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to say Will Smith sexually molested me while I was at a party with Denzel Washington. Do you see how that works? Right. So Diddy trusted Little Rod and he brought him in. And Little Rod said it himself. He trusted me. He brought me, I lived in his house. I lived in a couple of his mansions for months. And I lived on the yacht for months as well as we worked on musical projects and getting together, finishing up this album. And then out the blue came all this other stuff. So Diddy allegedly refused to honor a contract with Lil Rod. It's not itself a RICO predicate act. Even if the contract was breached, resulted from Jones's or Lil Rod's refusal to participate in Diddy's alleged racketeering scheme, this is what the judge said. These are not my words. The judge says that still did not amount to racketeering. So in sum, or to sum it all up then, whether or not Lil Rod had adequately alleged the existence of a RICO enterprise, he has not tied the activities of that enterprise to defendants' breach of that contract or any other business or property harm that was incurred by Lil Rod. Remember, Lil Rod told a lot. Lil Rod was the one who, in his paperwork, because I read the indictment, he was the one that said that little white boy that you see around Diddy is his gun runner and also his drug carrier. And he'll make sure that the guns and the drugs get on the private jets when they travel. The feds acted on that information that was in Lil Rod's paperwork. And they, remember when they pulled up to the airport and they arrested Diddy's assistant, the Syracuse basketball player turned Diddy's assistant? That was lead that was followed from Lil Rod's paperwork. Lil Rod also threw other celebrities under the bus. And the only way he was able to get those other celebrities or get in their circle was the fact that he was in Diddy's circle. Cuba Gooding Jr. was accused of sexually molesting Lil Rod as a grown man. The breach of contract element was dismissed because nothing relevant to a payment agreement was in writing, and a year has passed since any alleged agreement was made between Lil Rod and Diddy or Diddy's company. The claim of emotional distress were also found to be legally deficient. In other words, he couldn't prove where the emotional distress was caused by dealing with Diddy and this situation. If you remember, Lil Rod said, "This is my last video, guys. I'm going into hiding because I fear for my life. I don't know what these people could do to me. I just don't want them to," along those lines. He painted a picture of, I'm telling the truth and I'm exposing Sean P. Diddy Combs, and he's powerful and I'm scared. And I've been getting a lot of death threats and stuff, so I'm going to go into hiding and I'm not coming out until all this is over with and a judgment has been made. Well, here we have it. The judge threw most of his stuff out. Judge Oitken's decision was lopsided, however, and Combs, along with his chief of staff, Christina Coram, will still have to answer for claims of sex trafficking. Additional claims against Diddy related to sexual assault and premises liability will also proceed. The judge decided, but the trafficking claim against Combs Global was dismissed. Just so everybody is on the same page. He still got to go to court. He still has some serious charges to answer to, which, by the way, I think Sean P. Diddy Combs will be beating these charges. In 2022, Lil Rod was hired by Diddy to work on what he would become or call the Love album, Off the Grid. Diddy, first studio record since 2006. He spent over a year in Diddy's inner circle, living with him, traveling with him, and he also became his videographer in his day-to-day. So you get this opportunity to see through those lenses this man's real intimate circle in private life, because he trusted him that much. When he exited Diddy's circle, he claims that he was groomed and he was abused and he was exploited and he was robbed of $50,000 in payment. He was robbed of publishing shares and royalties for his work on the Grammy-nominated album. Now, you can look at it like this. Who was paying for your room and board and your food? And because when you hire a producer to work, you don't owe that producer his day-to-day life. Like, you finance putting gas in his car, you finance how his rent or his mortgage is paid, you finance his day-to-day activities. And for Lil Rob, being around Diddy, everything was paid for over a year. Living in luxury for over a year. Chose to stick around for over a year when he could have left at any given time. Lil Rod's case was filed February 26th in New York federal court, seeking $30 million in restitution. That's $30 million he won't be getting. Now, in that lengthy filing, which was later amended to add more damning allegations, Lil Rod was also the person that, in his paperwork, said things about Young Miami and pink cocaine and how Young Miami would bring girls and guys and drugs for Diddy. and all this other stuff. He put a lot of information in there. He was in the man's inner circle, okay? He saw a lot of stuff. Now, in that lengthy filing, which was later amended to add more damning allegations, Lil Rod levels harsh accusations against Diddy, including allegations that he was assaulted by him sexually, and he was forced by Diddy to engage in acts made to solicit sex workers, drugged, humiliated, and says that he was repeatedly groped on his anus and his genitals while he was in Diddy's company. This is where he brought in Cuba Gooding Jr.'s name, just threw another celebrity in there. Did y'all see how Jay-Z's name just ended up in the mix? And Jay-Z had to fight to clear his name, hire undercover private investigators, and go the whole route of exposing the attorney out of Texas, Tony Busby, who concocted this case along with his client. Well, you could imagine. I'm telling y'all, when millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars are on the table, people lose their mind when they think that they can get a piece of this money. So while portions of the case will proceed, after Monday's decision, the judge was curt as it admonished Jones and his attorney, using some strong language. The judge used some strong language to cast off the plaintiff's attempted legal maneuver and his counsel's conduct. I guess when Lil Rod and his attorney realized they ain't not going to be getting anything, they became quite unprofessional, so to speak. So Judge Oitken states that Lil Rod's effort to convert a garden variety breach of contract case into a RICO suit falls flat. These are the judge's words. The judge saw right through the bullshit. Lil Rod fails to address any racketeering arguments in his opposition brief, and while the court prefers to decide issues on the merits, it should not be necessary to root around a 402-paragraph complaint to contrive novel arguments on Lil Rod's behalf. A special warning to counsel section was also included in that decision, directed to Blackburn, stating that his filings are replete with inaccurate statements of law, conclusory accusations, and inappropriate ad hominem attacks on opposing counsel. In other words, the judge was telling Lil Rod's attorney, your case was all fucked up. The things you filed in that case, all messed up. For example, in arguing that the court to consider a grand jury indictment for Combs, Diddy, on related criminal charges, Blackburn writes, as evidenced by U.S. Attorney Williams' press conference and the grand jury indictment, defendant Sean Combs and the Combs RICO enterprise are presumed guilty of being a RICO criminal organization. End of quote. The judge quoted this before writing that any licensed member of the bar would espouse such an absurd understanding of the law is not just disturbing, but it is actually shocking. So again, y'all, Diddy won, but he won big. So for all the people who are keeping this quiet, this is one they should be saying out loud. But I guess it's not going their way because they don't get to celebrate the fall of a giant. The judge said that any licensed member of a bar would espouse such an absurd understanding of the law is not just disturbing, but it is shocking. And I actually think that when it comes time in court for evidence to come forward for all the other accusations against Diddy, this is exactly the reaction that's going to be given to it. So the judge wrote that the operative complaint and Blackburn's opposition brief are full of similar irrelevant insults, misstatements, and exaggerations. Hell, they were going after $30 million. They figured, Cassie got some money, so there's blood in the water now. The sharks are out. Let's get our case in there quickly, because even if we don't get 30 mil, maybe they'll settle for 15 mil. We still come off good. It's a strategy. He added that the court will not hold Blackburn's antics against Jones, which is Little Rod, at this point. We won't hold your lawyers' fuckery and foolishness against you, but warned the attorney of looming sanctions or referral for discipline should such conduct continue. In other words, you better do away with this damn case before you end up losing your law license. Because after the judge looked through it, it's all fuckery. And the way it was put together fucked up. A lot of misinformation, a lot of twisted stuff, a lot of disrespectful language, nothing professional. Now, Blackburn, the attorney, he told the Hollywood Reporter on Tuesday that he respects the judge's order and the judge's opinion, and he is pleased with the decision. And he can now proceed with legal discovery related to the case, naming both Combs, which is Diddy, and Coram, which is somebody else. We view this as a win. The defendant wanted a total dismissal, and they failed to get it. He said, "I know where all the bodies are buried, and I have a huge shovel. It's time to start digging." That was his response after the judge scolded him. Well, I know what? These don't normally turn out too well. Coram broke her silence last week. So Coram is somebody else that he is representing while also representing Lil Rod. The judge threw out Lil Rod's part. Now you're going with Coram's. Coram broke her silence. This man says he knows where all the bodies are buried and he has a huge shovel. Let's go. Coram broke her silence last week, months after being named in at least 3 civil suits alongside her former boss, claiming that she is innocent and that she has never condoned or aided and abetted the sexual assault of anyone. Diddy is currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, as he awaits his trial, which should be coming up shortly in May of 2025, just around the corner, following his September arrest of 2024 on federal RICO sex trafficking charges. Now, the rap mogul is also facing dozens of lawsuits that are claiming that he was involved in sex trafficking, he was involved in sexual assaults, he was involved in misconduct over his decades in the music and fashion industry. Diddy has denied all the claims, and he waits to have his day in court. And according to not only his attorney, but other high-powered attorneys, like the attorney that represented Donald Trump, that also recently represented A$AP Rocky and won his case out in California, who have looked at this indictment on Diddy and has said outright clearly they have nothing on him. I'm surprised he wasn't even given bail, because they have nothing on him, nothing concrete, nothing that sticks out to the point where you'll say, damn, he's in trouble. So like I said before, Diddy is going to fight. He has a lot of fight in him. He's going to fight. And don't be surprised if he fights and he wins it all. Take that. Take that. Bad boy. I thought I told you that we won't stop. I thought I told you that we won't stop. We'll see. Stay tuned. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll catch you on the next video. It's BrainFlow TV / Hot Topics TV. You already know if the topic is hot, we're on it. I'm out. Peace.